UFC 306 is on our doorsteps, and today I will be bringing you guys a full card predictions and breakdown for this absolute disappointment of a card. I'm not even going to talk anymore. This card sucks. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. First fight we have on this disappointment of a pay-per-view, we have Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Erkaleg. He has one name. It's just Erkaleg. I don't really know how that works, and I know I'm messing up that name really, really bad, but, you know, it's whatever. Raul Rosas Jr., we already know him pretty well. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He's 19 still. I feel like he's been 19 for the past 4 years, but that's whatever. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He's an absolute killer. And I think all finishes, too. All of his wins are by finish. He's coming off of a nasty rear naked choke that he had on Ricky Turcios, where he basically dominated the entire fight, except for one point where Ricky Turcios had an absolutely locked-in rear naked choke on Raul, and he just tanked it like a champ. Makes absolutely no sense. So he's unsubmittable. He's super, super young, and he's fighting a guy with one name. So give me Raul Rosas Jr. by a first-round submission. The next fight we have on this card is Edgar Chairez taking on, oh yes, a fight that I actually care about. Edgar Chairez taking on Joshua Van. I love Joshua Van. If you guys haven't seen my top 10, or not top 10, best prospects in each video list, or in each division list that I posted on my YouTube channel, go check that out because it's an absolutely great video. And for my flyweight division best prospect, I had Joshua Van. Even though he is coming off of a loss to Charles Johnson, which was a very, very nasty loss, he got completely flatlined by an uppercut. Edgar Chairez is absolutely not Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson's on an absolute tear. He's ginormous for the flyweight division, and he has super, super long arms. And he was just popping that jab out there on Joshua Van all day, right? He was popping that jab on Joshua Van all frickin' day, and he was piecing him up. But I do not think Edgar Chairez is going to be able to do that to him. Ride or die, Joshua Van, baby. He is pretty small for the division, but I am going to hope that he's just bulking up with time because his boxing is crisp. He has some real power in his hands. He has insane body shots, and that he proved in his last fight, some pretty good takedown defense. So I have no reason not to pick Joshua Van here. I also said that about his last fight with Charles Johnson, but even though I proved to be wrong there, Jackson Holepuck does not get it wrong twice. So give me Joshua Van by a second or third round KO due to some body shots. All right, now all my excitement is gone again. We have Yasmin Yergui taking on Caitlin Souza. And Caitlin Souza just kind of sucks, man. If you want me to be real honest with you here. Caitlin Souza, man, she did beat Marnique Mann, but Marnique Mann is like the smallest fighter I've ever seen. She's like, her height might be in the 4s, actually. It might be 4'11". I think it actually is. She is a 95er. Not a 195er, a 95er. Even atom weight is too big for Marnique Mann, and she was just completely outsized by Caitlin Souza at strawweight, and she's fighting Yasmin Yergui, which, remember Yasmin Yergui when she was like the future of the strawweight division, and she was like a future champ and 3-0 in the UFC, and then Denise Gomez flatlined her in 20 seconds? Do you guys remember that? Yeah. Yasmin Yergui? She's still a decent fighter. I mean, she destroyed Sam Hughes right after that, but wow. I mean, that was a hype train derailed, I'll tell you that much. People were looking for any women's fighter to jump on the hype train for because there wasn't really anyone climbing up the rankings in that division. That was all that. But Yasmin Yergui looked really, really good, and then Denise Gomez just completely flatlined her. And then since then, Denise Gomez has lost twice. So just nothing really came out of that at all. But Yasmin Yergui has really, really crisp boxing. She's one of the few strawweight women's MMA fighters who has real, real power. And I think that she's going to be able to outsize and outclass Caitlin Souza on the feet, on the ground, and anywhere they go. My guess is going to be a Yasmin Yergui ground and pound TKO in the first or second. Next up, we have Manuel Torres taking on Ignacio Bahamondes, and Manuel Torres is absolutely legit. He's 3-0 in the UFC, all 3 by finish. I can't believe I even missed him in my prospects video. He would have made it on the list. he would have made it on the divisions. I don't know how I missed him. He's such an amazing fighter, but he's fighting Ignacio Bahamondes, who has some of the nastiest kicks in the game. He KO'd Roosevelt Roberts via spinning wheel kick. It was completely nasty. Ignacio Bahamondes is an absolute dog. Even though we did lose to Ludovic Klein because he just forgot he had kicks in the fight, I guess. He just didn't use them at all. It was so frustrating to watch. But now he beat up Trey Ogden, knocked him out in the first round. Remember that he had kicks for once. And now I think that he will be able to piece apart Manuel Torres on the feet with those kicks until Manuel Torres starts to take over, which I believe that he will. Manuel Torres is absolutely legit. He has great ground game, great stand-up. He can knock you out on the feet. He can submit you on the ground. And I think he's going to be able to walk down Ignacio Bahamondes. We don't really know how good his gas tank is. If it goes to the second and third round, he could gas out and lose, but I do not think that's going to happen. So I'm going to take Manuel Torres by a first round KO or maybe even a submission. Next up, moving up this card, we have Irene Aldana taking on Norma Dumont. Norma Dumont, in my opinion, is extremely overrated, and her run at featherweight was also extremely overrated. She was fighting some absolute cans like the names of Chelsea frickin' Chandler, who is one of the most pathetic WMA fighters I've ever seen, and she was fighting in the worst weight class in UFC history, women's featherweight. Now she's going back down to featherweight, or back down to bantamweight, to fight a former title challenger in Irene Aldana, who's coming off of an absolute war victory that she had, and it was an absolutely great fight. Her last fight, it definitely showed something for me. Her stock rose very much in that fight. It was one of the more impressive fights that I've ever seen out of her or out of that women's bantamweight division in general. Irene Aldana does carry some real punching power. She has very good power in her hands. Norma Dumont, her boxing is iffy, but her ground game is pretty good, and if she can be able to control Irene Aldana on the ground, there is a chance that she can pull off the victory, but I just don't think that's going to happen. If you want anything to really bet on it, if you want to sprinkle some money on it, I would put it on Irene Aldana by KO, because that's what I'm going to pick. Irene Aldana by KO in the second or third. Next up, we're already on the pay-per-view because this terrible pay-per-view card only has 10 fights on it and only 5 prelims to watch. And now our first card on the pay-per-view is Ode Osborne taking on Ronaldo Lazy Boy Rodriguez. Ronaldo Rodriguez is 1-0 in the UFC, and he did win his fight by dominant finish, but there's not really much to say about him. He beat a bunch of cans on the regional scene, and he's 1-0 in the UFC. So I can't really say much about him. But one thing that I can say about this fight is that Ode Osborne, his opponent, is a can. An absolute can. I'm talking straight in the dumpster. He's terrible. Ode Osborne has lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. His 3 losses all come by finish. He got KO'd by Tyson Nam, got subbed by Andre Filo in his last fight, and got subbed by Asu Alamabayev. He's getting destroyed by cans. Tyson Nam is a can. Tyson Nam is a can in the dumpster. And he's getting KO'd by him? Stiff? Manel Kopp knocked him out stiff. Manel Kopp is going to split decisions with Felipe Dos Santos. And he's getting KO'd flat in like a minute by him. So, yeah, I can absolutely not pick Ode Osborne in this fight. Give me Ronaldo Lazy Boy Rodriguez by a 30-27 dominant decision, or maybe even a Next up, we have Daniel Zellhuber taking on Esteban Ribovic. This card sucks so bad. I mean, this card is so bad. It's not even funny. It's not even a laughing matter that I'm going to go out there and spend $80 on this terrible card. But Daniel Zellhuber and Esteban Ribovic is going to be a really fun fight. Esteban Ribovic, I used to think was kind of a can, a win-one, lose-one type of guy. But after watching him land that picture-perfect head kick on Terrence McKinney and knocking him out in the first round, it kind of has made me feel a little bit different about him. And he is taking on Daniel Zellhuber, which Daniel Zellhuber does remind me of like a Yair Rodriguez type of fighter, as he is very flashy striking. He's a long and rangy Mexican kickboxer who has great kicks, and he's very open on the feet. That just puts it all together. He is very open on the feet, and I do think that Esteban Ribovic is going to be able to land on him. But the question is, who has more power? And I honestly think that it's Esteban Ribovic. But as much as I do want to pick Esteban Ribovic, it's hard for me not to pick him, or to pick him, because Daniel Zellhuber has such great striking and has such fast and flashy kicks. I do think that he'll be able to keep Esteban Ribovic at range for 3 rounds and just kind of piece him up and pick him apart. I do think that this fight's going to be close. Esteban Ribovic might have a good round, or maybe even 2 good rounds, and pull off a crazy split decision. But I just don't think it's going to happen. Give me Daniel Zellhuber by a 29-28. Next up, we finally have a fight that is good. We have Brian T. City Ortega taking on Diego Lopez. And I'm going to be picking Diego Lopez. And I'm going to tell you why right now. Diego Lopez, man, he is an absolute animal. He has great ground game, insane power in his hands, super fast boxing. It's so crisp. You watch his fight with Dan Ige. He beats him on the ground. He beats him on the feet. He beats him everywhere. It's absolutely insane. The way that he just put out Sadiq Youssef, so nasty. And if you take a look at Brian Ortega, his striking sucks. Brian Ortega's striking is terrible. The only hope that he really has is throwing up a magical submission like he did against Yair Rodriguez. But even at that, I don't know if he'll be able to do that on a guy like Diego Lopez. You can do that on a guy like Yair Rodriguez, who has the worst ground game I've ever seen, okay? He's a jiu-jitsu white belt. But if you can't do it on someone like Diego Lopez, right? And that's what I'm trying to say right now. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And Diego Lopez, man, he's an absolute dog. He's staying really active. He's young. Brian Ortega is the complete opposite of active. Whatever active is, he's the opposite. Inactive, right? He fights once every 15 months. It's terrible. He's won 1 fight in the past 4 years. And besides that, he beat the Korean Zombie. The Korean Zombie hasn't been good in like almost a decade. So I don't really know what to tell him on that one. But I don't think Ortega is going to be able to win this fight. I think the problem with Brian Ortega is that he's very inactive. His striking is terrible. And Diego Lopez has some insane power in his hands. So I'm going to be taking Diego Lopez by a first round KO. Next up, we have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Alexa Grasso for the flyweight strap. They're running it back for a 3rd time, the trilogy fight. And man, do I really love Valentina Shevchenko. I want Valentina Shevchenko to win more than I want anybody else to win on this entire card. I love the bullet. She's so fun. She's so entertaining. And, I mean, she had such a great reign with the belt. But, man, after watching that last fight with Alexa Grasso, that kind of left a bad feeling in my stomach. Even though, if you look at the scorecards, Valentina should have won because that 5th round was absolutely not a 10-8 to Grasso. If you actually watch the fight, Grasso won like at least 3 rounds. Like you could argue 4-1 Grasso in that fight, in my opinion. I think Grasso clearly won. The 2nd round could have been a 10-8 for Grasso. So if you use the thing like, oh, 5th round's not a 10-8, 2nd round could easily be a 10-8 for Grasso. So you can't say that. And yeah, sure, the 5th round scorecard was bad, and it actually should have gone to Shevchenko if the judges scored the fight how they did, if they scored it correctly and not scoring it a 5th round for Grasso. A fifth round 10-8 for Alexa Grasso. But if you actually look at the fight, I think Grasso won. So that 2nd fight really put a bad feeling in my stomach for Valentina Shevchenko. I do not think she's going to be able to win this fight. Oh man, do I hope that she proves me wrong, but I honestly think that Grasso's boxing is better than Shevchenko's. I think Grasso's back takes and her submissions are better than Shevchenko's, and that ground game is going to be really entertaining, but Grasso carries some real serious power on the feet, and she has some real fast and powerful boxing. So I think that Grasso's going to beat her. I think this fight's going to be razor close, just like all of their other ones are. But I am going to take Grasso just barely by a 48-47, 3-2 unanimous decision. Next up, the last fight on the card and the main event of the evening. We have Suga Sean O'Malley taking on Merab the Machine Dvalishvili. I already made a full video on why I believe that Sean O'Malley is going to knock out Merab, but I'm going to explain a little bit in a little bit shorter terms right here for you guys today. And I do think that Sean's going to knock out Merab Dvalishvili. Merab has short, stubby arms, and he has a big old head. And he also can't strike. He got wobbled by Henry Cejudo, wobbled bad and dropped, and debatably should have been stopped against Marlon Moraes back when Marlon Moraes wasn't even very good either. So that was very, very unimpressive. He got beat up by Ricky Simone. He got beat up by Frankie Saenz. I don't think Merab's as good as everyone says he is. Merab has insane cardio, yes. But cardio doesn't matter if you get slept in the second round. So cardio only means so much until you're sleeping on the canvas. And I do believe that Sean O'Malley is going to be able to put his lights out. Sean O'Malley finds chins. It's what he does. He's not a big flashy striker with a bunch of big volume shots or big crazy shots. He just finds your chin. He takes that piston left and he finds your chin. I know it might sound like I'm glazing right now, but I mean, it's just what he does, right? And even though I don't really love Sean O'Malley and I don't really want him to win, like I do want him to win because I hate Merab, but like, I don't know. O'Malley has no charisma, so I kind of hate him, actually, a little bit, because he's a cuck with no charisma and can't talk on the mic, so I don't really love to watch him fight, or actually love to watch him fight, but I don't really love the fight weeks surrounding Sean O'Malley. I don't love the trash talk. I don't love the mic game of Sean O'Malley, but I do think that he has a very, very fun style, and I do think that he'll be able to find Merab's chin. If anything, I think he'll sleep Merab in the first or the second round, tops the third round. If it does go to the championship rounds, I could see Merab beating him, but I don't think that's going to happen. Give me Sean O'Malley by a second round KO. Who's with me?